Usually when we look at a map of the world, we just see these solid lines.
Right, borders, coastlines, that sort of thing.
Exactly. We have this comforting illusion that everything is neatly compartmentalized. Like an earthquake happens over here, a diplomatic summit happens over there, a software update happens somewhere in the cloud.
It's all in its own little box.
Yeah. But today is Tuesday, April 21st, 2026. And looking at the stack of sources for today's deep dive, I mean, that separation is just completely shattered.
Categorizing threats definitely makes them feel more manageable, but what we're currently watching is the physical world and the digital world basically collapsing into this single, highly sensitive nervous system.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we are looking at a day where all these old structures, whether it's global diplomacy, legacy, tech leadership, even like traditional classroom learning, they are fracturing. And new paradigms are violently pushing their way to the surface.
Violently is a good word for it.
Yeah, and while some of the updates we're going to get into today sound like the plot of a sci-fi thriller, they actually map directly onto your daily digital and physical life. By the end of this deep dive, you will see exactly how a collapsing ceasefire in the Middle East connects to, of all things, a Chinese robot running a marathon.
It is a wild sequence of events.
It really is. So let's start with the ground literally shifting beneath our feet. Yesterday, there was a massive 7.7 magnitude earthquake off the coast of Iwate Prefecture in northern Japan.
Yeah, and over 180,000 people were evacuated.
Which is terrifying. Thankfully, the tsunami waves were minor. But the real alarm bell in the briefings we're looking at is the warning that came right after.
Right. The Meteorological Agency issued a very rare special advisory. They noted a 1% chance of a magnitude 8 or stronger earthquake, a true megaquake occurring along 2 deep-sea Pacific trenches in the next week.
Wait, 1%? I mean, that sounds incredibly small to the average person.
It does, but in geological terms, that is 10 times the normal background probability. So the long-feared 2011-style scenario is looming right now.
Wow. And obviously, the human cost is the absolute priority there. But from an infrastructure standpoint, Japan isn't just an island nation, right? It's essentially the central routing hub for undersea fiber optic cables.
Exactly. It connects Asia to North America and Europe. The geography of the seafloor makes Japan the most critical choke point for global data transmission.
So if a physical megaquake severs those deep-sea cables...
We aren't just looking at local power outages. We're looking at the global internet going dark for entire regions. The physical layer of the internet is just incredibly vulnerable to tectonic shifts.
And, that physical fragility in the Pacific really mirrors the geopolitical fragility we're seeing in the Middle East right now. Because that 2-week ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran, it expires tomorrow, Wednesday evening.
And the diplomatic off-ramps are rapidly disappearing. I mean, a second round of peace talks in Islamabad just completely fell apart before it even began.
Right. And the U.S. sent a really heavy-hitting delegation for this. Vice President JD Vance, along with envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. They were there to lead the negotiations, but Iran essentially boycotted.
Yeah, they refused to send negotiators. Instead, they demanded the immediate release of a U.S.-seized Iranian vessel as a precondition.
Which, by demanding the release of a seized vessel first, they aren't just stalling. They are signaling a total shift away from the negotiating table and toward active proxy warfare. I mean, President Trump has already stated that extending this ceasefire without a deal is highly unlikely.
And we are already seeing the fallout on the ground from that stance.
Yeah, in London there have been these terrifying arson attacks on Jewish community sites, specifically in the Golders Green neighborhood where 4 charity ambulances were torched.
And a group calling itself Harakat Ashab al-Yamin al-Islamiyah has claimed responsibility for that. NATO intelligence is tracking this very closely.
Why NATO specifically?
Because it represents a broader, escalating pattern of Iranian-directed proxy operations. They're blending physical sabotage with asymmetric tactics across Western countries right now in 2026.
And these proxy wars aren't confined to physical fires, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're immediately shifting into digital fires. Iran has a really deep history of retaliatory cyber attacks when diplomatic pressure ramps up. And right now, security researchers are throwing up red flags all across enterprise networks.
Yeah, the digital supply chain is the new front line.
Exactly. I was looking at the mechanics of these new cyber attacks, and they aren't even trying to break down the front door anymore. They are entirely focused on poisoning the supply chain. Like, look at the Vercel breach we're tracking.
Right. Attackers didn't hack Vercel directly at first.
No. They compromised a smaller third-party AI analytics tool called Context.ai, which is just being used by one Vercel employee.
And Context.AI didn't have the enterprise security budget of a giant like Vercel, which makes it a perfect backdoor. So once inside that third-party tool, the attackers found unsecured digital sticky notes.
What developers call environment variables.
Exactly, just left behind by a single employee. And these files often contain crucial API keys and system passwords.
So they took those unencrypted variables, stole Google Workspace credentials, and suddenly you have a threat actor going by shiny hunters selling the master access keys for $2 million online.
It's alarming. And the tactics are getting even more deceptive than that. Attackers are now weaponizing legitimate GitHub notifications to bypass multi-factor authentication entirely.
Okay, I was trying to piece this together when reading the sources. They aren't even trying to crack the MFA security protocol, right? How are they using GitHub's own infrastructure against developers?
The mechanism is actually brilliant in a very malicious way. The attacker opens a GitHub issue or a pull request and simply tags the target developer's username.
Okay.
Because GitHub servers are fully legitimate and completely trusted by every corporate spam filter on the planet, GitHub automatically generates and sends an email notification to that developer.
So the email looks completely real because it actually is from GitHub.
Precisely. But inside that legitimate email is a link crafted by the attacker. When the developer clicks it, it takes them to a malicious page that captures their session tokens, the digital cookies that keep you logged in before multi-factor authentication even has a chance to trigger.
Oh, wow. So they are using the platform's automated helpfulness as a weapon.
They really are.
And we're seeing this same kind of lateral movement with Microsoft Teams. Attackers are using legitimate external guest accounts in Teams to message internal employees directly, which bypasses email phishing filters completely.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like the globe is playing this massive high-stakes game of Jenga right now.
That's a really good way to put it.
Right. You pull out one diplomatic block in Islamabad, and suddenly IT departments in Chicago are scrambling to lock down their Microsoft Teams architecture. You pull out a tectonic plate in Japan, and the global internet could literally sever.
The compounding factor here is what intelligence agencies are calling the hybrid threat landscape. Because whether it is a nation-state using proxies to burn charity ambulances or a geological fault line threatening digital cables, the barrier between real-world geography and digital infrastructure simply no longer exists.
Yeah, that wall is gone. And that same fragility we see in our digital infrastructure is forcing a massive shift in the companies that build it, because Apple just dropped a leadership bombshell that feels, directly tied to this new reality.
It's the biggest executive transition there in 15 years.
Yeah. On September 1st, 2026, John Ternus will officially become the CEO of Apple, with Tim Cook transitioning to executive chairman. And John Ternus is only 50 years old.
Which is quite young for that role. He is currently the senior VP of hardware engineering, Russ.
Yes. He led the Apple Silicon transition, the M-series chips, the iPhone 16. I mean, Tim Cook was famous for being a logistics and supply chain genius. Putting Ternus in charge feels like a massive signal that controlling fundamental silicon hardware architecture is now way more critical than just managing a global supply chain.
Definitely. But zooming out from Silicon Valley, the larger U.S.-China tech race is undergoing an even more dramatic shift.
Oh, the Stanford data.
Yes, the new Stanford University AI Index for 2026. It reveals that the artificial intelligence performance gap between the U.S. and China has essentially vanished.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
As of March 2026, Anthropic's top model, which is the U.S. leader, is only 2.7 percentage points ahead of China's best. And models from both countries are now exceeding 50% accuracy on humanity's last exam.
Right, which is that data set of the hardest unsolved problems in science and math.
Yeah. And on SWE Bench, which measures how well an AI can resolve real-world software engineering issues, they went from 60% to near 100% in a single year.
The economics behind those performance metrics present a massive paradox, though.
Right. Because here's where it gets really interesting to me. According to the sources, U.S. private AI investment hit $285.9 billion. That is 23 times what China is investing privately.
23 times.
So if the U.S. is outspending China 23-1, how on earth is the performance gap closing so fast? Is money just, not the deciding factor anymore in the tech race?
Well, money cannot buy a talent pipeline overnight, and that is exactly what the Stanford report exposes. While the U.S. is pouring hundreds of billions into massive software language models, the country is experiencing a severe brain drain.
Really?
Yes, the number of foreign AI researchers choosing to relocate to the United States has plummeted 89% since 2017.
An 89% drop in top talent coming here. That means the intellectual capital is just drying up.
Exactly. And China is taking a fundamentally different approach with their available capital. They are laser focused on applied autonomous robotics. They're building a massive pipeline of thousands of students annually who have actual hands-on experience integrating AI into physical hardware.
Which perfectly explains the Beijing half-marathon data we have.
Right.
A humanoid robot built by Honor, which, by the way, is a Chinese smartphone manufacturer, not even a traditional defense contractor, ran the 21.1-kilometer course entirely autonomously. No human assistance, no remote control.
And it finished the half marathon in 50 minutes and 26 seconds. It completely shattered the human men's world record, which is 57 minutes and 20 seconds.
Unbelievable.
It just proves that China's focus on integrating AI into autonomous physical systems is yielding these rapid real-world advancements, while the U.S. still remains heavily skewed toward software.
But, even on the software side, those AI models aren't just sitting in server farms waiting for humans to type in prompts anymore. We are officially entering the era of multi-agent AI systems going mainstream.
Yeah, the underlying architecture of AI has totally shifted from single chat interactions to specialized models working in autonomous teams.
Right, so one model acts as the project manager, breaking down a complex problem. A second model writes the necessary code. A third model independently verifies and tests that code. And a fourth drafts the final report.
It's fascinating.
So AI models have basically invented the corporate committee.
Yeah.
But instead of taking 3 weeks and 6 meetings to draft an email, they are solving immensely complex software and scientific problems in seconds.
Exactly.
But the catch is, just like a corporate committee, when the output is wrong or hallucinated, who exactly gets fired?
Well, that's the thing. The accountability structure for that scenario simply doesn't exist yet. When these models interact autonomously, tracing a critical error back to a single source becomes a complete forensic nightmare.
I can imagine.
The UN's Global Dialogue on AI Governance has actually set an urgent April 30 deadline for member states to submit input specifically to address this vacuum. Because the EU has their AI Act, China has its framework, but the U.S. still has absolutely no comprehensive federal AI legislation to govern multi-agent systems.
And we are seeing the messy reality of autonomous automation play out in the physical world too, all the way up in space.
Oh, the Blue Origin flight.
Yeah, Blue Origin's new Glenn rocket just made history at Cape Canaveral. They achieved the first ever reuse of a booster on only its third flight. And it is a massive technical achievement to land a rocket booster on a drone ship.
A historic landing, definitely. But combined with a total mission failure.
Right.
The automated system successfully handled the complex mechanical descent, but they deployed the payload, the AST Space Mobile Bluebird 7 satellite, into a lower, unsustainable orbit. So the satellite is effectively lost.
Which perfectly captures the dilemma of 2026.
Yeah.
You have an automated system that can thread the needle to land a massive rocket on a floating platform, but simultaneously miscalculates the primary objective of orbit insertion.
Yeah.
When an autonomous system achieves a marvel but fails its core mission, whether it's an AI committee writing bad code or a rocket losing a payload assigning liability, is really the biggest unanswered question we face.
It is. And the lack of governance at the UN or federal level means these massive technological and geopolitical forces are just rolling downhill, and they are crashing directly into local communities.
Specifically, your local school district.
Yes. Schools are finding themselves operating as the ultimate regulatory buffer.
And going back to the Iranian cyber operations we discussed earlier, K-12 school networks are increasingly becoming the primary soft targets for those state-sponsored attacks.
They house highly sensitive data, medical records, social security numbers of minors, but they have nowhere near the enterprise-level defenses of a bank or a tech giant.
Exactly. But while the external threats are severe, inside the building, the AI revolution is creating a complete crisis of academic integrity. The 2025-2026 Education Insights Report highlights this glaring paradox in the system.
Right, because superintendents are universally pushing the potential of AI.
Yeah, but because there's no national framework, students are secretly using it to complete assignments, and teachers are playing constant game of whack-a-mole to catch them. And the actual definition of cheating varies wildly from one desk to the next.
And state legislatures are scrambling to fill that vacuum, and it is just the Wild West out there. Across 31 states, there are currently 134 different AI bills introduced for education in 2026 alone.
Wow.
For example, California is pushing AB 1159 to ban the use of student data for AI training. Idaho is pushing SB 1227 to mandate strict privacy protections. Meanwhile, Georgia and Mississippi are moving in the exact opposite direction.
Really, how so?
They are moving to make AI literacy a mandatory graduation requirement.
You're kidding. And this legislative chaos is happening alongside a massive, simultaneous backlash against screens entirely. Like 16 states have introduced strict screen time laws. Alabama and Utah have already enacted them.
Right.
Kansas has implemented a complete prohibition on digital devices. Iowa and Oklahoma have instituted these rigid 60-minute daily caps for elementary school students.
And what's fascinating is the politics driving this.
Yeah. You have this incredibly rare political coalition where conservative parents concerned about social media algorithms and progressive educators concerned about developmental equity are actually finding common ground to ban screens.
It is an unprecedented alliance, but it creates a regulatory nightmare for school technology directors who have to somehow navigate these conflicting mandates.
So what does this all mean for a teenager today? We have an incredibly rare political moment where conservative parents and progressive teachers are holding hands to ban screens in elementary schools. But at the exact same time, states like Georgia are saying you must learn AI to graduate. Talk about mixed signals.
Absolutely.
Like, you pull out a diplomatic block in Islamabad, and suddenly a school board in Oklahoma is trying to figure out how to negotiate human cognitive development against multi-agent AI on behalf of society. That is an immense amount of pressure on an institution that is, also just trying to serve lunch and fix the HVAC system.
Yeah, local school boards are essentially currently the frontline negotiators for the future of human development.
Man, we have covered some incredibly heavy, high-stakes material today. We've traced cyber supply chains, analyzed megaquake probabilities, unpacked superpower tech races, and looked at struggling school systems. Before we wrap up, it feels necessary to zoom out and look at something outside the grid.
Something purely beautiful that reminds us of human endurance in the world outside our screens.
Exactly. And the Boston Marathon provided a brilliant reminder of analog human capability this week.
It really did.
Kenya's John Korir absolutely crushed the course record, finishing in 2 hours, 1 minute, and 52 seconds. Sharon Lokedi repeated her win in the women's race, and we saw American records fall to Zuhair Talbi and Jess McClain. It was just a stunning display of what the physical human body can achieve without any digital augmentation.
It's amazing. And, if you look up from the marathon course into the evening sky right now, there is a celestial event happening that requires absolutely zero technology to appreciate.
Well, the alignment.
Yes. From April 19 through April 23, we are experiencing a rare, perfectly visible alignment. The crescent moon, Venus, and the Pleiades star cluster, which is also known as the Seven Sisters, are forming a compact, bright triangle in the western sky.
And you don't need a telescope for this. You don't need a multi-agent AI to track it. You don't need an augmented reality headset. You literally just step outside about an hour after sunset, look west, and take it in. I mean, humans have looked up at the Pleiades for thousands of years, long before we had AI, undersea internet cables, or global supply chains.
Exactly. The Pleiades have guided navigation and mythology across countless ancient cultures, from the Greeks to the Maori. It is a visceral connection to deep time.
Which really leaves us with this to ponder. As we move into an era where multi-agent AI systems operate entirely beyond human comprehension and humanoid robots are shattering world records, will we eventually need to engineer artificial moments of awe to keep ourselves grounded? Or will we always instinctively put down our screens and look back up at the analog sky to remember our place in the universe?
The analog sky might be the only infrastructure we can truly rely on.
That's a great point. Let that thought linger as you go about your day. Keep questioning, stay curious, and remember to look up tonight. That's our deep dive. We will catch you next time.